Hey YouTube, it's Steve again from Rescape 2.0. I'm going to make another video today that goes along with Caveman strength from yesterday that largely followed basic ways of how people had to be back then to survive and how we're not that way anymore and how it's intentional. And because of the survival part, I went largely over the defensive mechanisms, how they could take hits several times stronger than ours and how they could move quickly when they needed to in a way that we can't move quickly, to go up against how quickly animals move and things like that. Well, there's the other side of, let's say you do survive a lion attack or just run away from a lion. I said you have your buddies with you. Well, the other option is to kill the lion. Now, lions are in packs too, so you have issues there. But if you're going hunting, you have to kill animals too. And the way we kill animals now, at least a while back then, they had bows and arrows. But before then, they didn't even have bows and arrows, and they may have been able to throw spears. But a lot of this, and again, this is one of the things we don't think about, but a lot of this is they get up close to the animal. And I'm pretty sure people will still hunt like that today, where you get up close to the animal. But to do that regularly, where if you didn't do it, you could starve and all that. The question is, phone's shaking. Hang on, let me put my phone down. Okay, so the question is, how do you do this regularly? Because like everybody knows, if you're going to hunt an animal, you have to be downwind so they can't smell you and that sort of thing. And then the quickness thing applies because I said about the spring power and how they're always crouched. They don't have to crouch to jump. But the crouch to jump thing doesn't have to be jumping. It can also be accelerating in different directions, because you can sprint like we go from 0 to full sprint maybe after 2 or 3 strides, or if you're in the Olympics, maybe it's just 1 stride, like the NFL players can go one direction, then the completely opposite direction in one push of the leg. And you think of the G-force of that, it's pretty impressive. But there's still the push. And the problem with the push is the acceleration's through the muscle. And if you're about to get swapped by a lion, it has to be instantaneous. And so like the spring power thing I was telling you about, that makes you can run really fast because your strides are longer. One of the things, and again, we don't think about this a lot, like in movies, you'll see people like in The Matrix, they'll like run up walls, and which is pretty cool. But in real life back then, what they had to do, if you're going to hit something like that, let's say you hit a wall, you can't run up the wall because that's just your legs. And again, for have real strength, you have to have your whole body moving as one piece. So if you think like how a frog jumps and the frog's belly's flat and then it jumps up in the air because it can use all the surface area of its body. So when it's like, say there's a tree, if they're running, like they sprint forward, they hit the tree with their whole body like that, and then they spring off like that. And it's like boom, like that. And they can get that boom part because of the spring power. And the other thing too, because their legs are bent, but there's a whole nother thing too with the spring gene. Their legs are here, and I can kind of do this with my hand. So watch my hand. So you can kind of see it move a little bit. Can you see it like crunch up? So you didn't physically, positionally didn't move a lot. And you think that's my muscle, but it's really not, because are there muscles like in my fingers? Are there muscles right there? So there's my fingers now. There. You may not be able to see that, but basically they can hold springs inside them that can potentially be invisible. So if they think they're on edge, they see something there, then they kind of spring up on the inside. And then if something jumps out and they're ready to pop out, and so you're like here, like you're walking around and you think maybe something's up, so you go here and they're really still. And if something jumps out, they're ready to pop up. And then as they're going, they clinch up again, they hit the wall, they pop out again. And it's largely hidden because when you fight, especially if you fight another human, you don't want them to know what you're about to do. And again, it's whole body. So like what we think about a spear, like going like that, so maybe, but for them, it's the leg and the spear and the crunch and the push. So the power of the spear, not only, it's not your arms putting forth. If you're, like I'm 200 pounds, if I were to do this back then and had the spear in there, not only is the spear doesn't extend past my body, it actually is going with the momentum of the 200 pounds behind me, plus the spring and the momentum. So they take advantage of the strength, like, because you think about it, we walk around with however much our body weight. Let's even you weigh like 150 pounds. You're walking around, you're moving around 150 pounds like it's nothing because you do it every day. Imagine if you could get all that 150 pounds behind a spear point. And you think that's crazy, but because we go like that, but how ridiculously weak would that be compared to actually bringing with your whole body and having the whole thing? And that's the kind of thing how you kill a grizzly bear, because if you go like that, it's not going to do anything. But if you have your whole 200 pounds going into it, maybe you hit it with the hand, and oh, God forbid if you miss, because here comes the grizzly bear claw. And it goes into more stuff like that. But when you start using your whole body to do things, everything changes. So you got like spring power and strength. There's like 50 things like that, and that's just 2 of them. And then you do the energetics part. And that's the crazy part, because like you'll see like Shaolin monks will show you these like ridiculous feats they can do, and some of them are real. And back then, like what I said, when you have the way we breathe air in and out, the natural thing to do energetically is to do that, where you have energy coming, like basically energy pulls your head up, suspended by the head, and you've got that going down, and it comes down to your lower abdomen, and your feet absorb it, and it comes up like roots from a tree. Sort of like how trees have sunlight and then water. And it comes to the middle, and when your hips are tucked, you have that connection there. And that connection is just a natural thing that human beings are supposed to have. And then what you have with the legs is it circulates it. So when you walk, you move the energy around. If you know about the microcosmic orbit. And the same way they do that with their mind, like they're always in the present moment, so their mind's always getting stronger. When they walk around, they're building energy, and their energy is always growing and getting bigger. And I'll tell you about the marrow washing. So largely most marrow washing is through the legs, because that's where most of your bone marrow is, or the bones that have the most bone marrow is your femur bone. So when they walk, they're doing marrow washing. And all this is natural, because no one learns qigong back then. So anything of this kind of thing has to happen naturally to everyday life. Like when you squat to poop, it clears out your lower dantian, things like that. It's all natural. You don't think about it. And then the thing is, if you have energy, and the spring energy is a quality, so you spring up and like that kind of thing. But what would you do? Like I said, your bones are heavier with marrow washing, so now you weigh more. And then again with the Shaolin monks, you can say, they hit things harder, but that's just with the hand. So if your body's filled with energy, how much stronger is the spring? Because the spring is a gene quality, so it's based off the qi in your body is what allows your body to take on that quality. If you have twice as much energy as someone else, you should have twice as much spring quality, and then times that multiple fold. So now you're doing things that we can't even think about at this point. And imagine the acceleration of that. If you're spring, 100 times, what I just showed that. And so now you're moving at speeds, like now you're moving at animal speeds. So if you ever see like a cat like start pawing, it goes from nothing to paw before you can even see it. So that's the speed they would have to move. And that's one of the ways they did that. So, and then when you're attacking, because another thing is you jump up the tree and you spring back, and now the tiger's still doing that thing. And so that's their move in the present moment. You're moving the present moment as you're coming back with whatever you got. And you can say, well, you miss. Well, now you're flying over the tiger's head. And so it has to turn around because you're behind it. And that's its next move. And then they're like, rolling or doing whatever. And that's their next move. But with the spring and the multiple lengths of you take multiple, like one step goes multiple lengths. Well, now you're behind it. So it has to spring down to jump. Because it's not sprung at this part because it did its attack. So it turns, that's one move. It springs down. Now it can jump at you. But then by then you've got things going on and you have friends. And again, lions fight in packs too, so it gets more complicated than this. And the way you can keep track of all this, because I say it's instantaneously fast, but when you're in the present moment your whole life, like I said, your mind has to process more and more information, or else it stays out of the present moment. As you go through your life, you're able to process, more and more information to stay in the present moment longer. So eventually you can stay in the present moment when you're, getting hit or hear a lion roar or things trying to make you afraid, you can stay in there. And it doubles as a way to keep track when things are like boom, 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 like faster than that. How do you keep track of it all and stay in the present moment? It's because they built their mind up over time to be able to do that. And again, it's not because like today, people like Tai Chi masters build up their minds to do that, but they have to train. Back then, they didn't train. So again, all this has to be natural. So you can add up to the fact they're always in the present moment, that the survival mechanism and the psychic abilities and the body qualities, they're all like interrelated, and the chi building. And they don't have to think about any of it because it's just the way things were back then. It was just natural. And I think, and you talk about like, is there a God? Well, there's definitely a designer, because there's no way this all could have come from natural selection, evolution, because it would have all had to come simultaneously together. They all work together, so they can't be in pieces. And the same thing is true with animals. The animals will use their chi energy, like what I said in Chi Debunked, like how humans are probably the only creatures that can't feel something like chi. And now from the past video, largely why, because of the arch in our lower back disconnects the upper and lower body, and that we walk like basically with all our pressure on our lower back, and we're walking straight. And like, how worthless is that? You're not sprung, you're not there, the energy doesn't circulate, you don't have full body strength. So basically everything they had back then, again, in the authentic energy, how you pull the one thing away in Qigong, mirror washing, and then you really can't do it at all. So you go back to that lower arch, which is notoriously innocent, but now I've told you all these things that it does, and there's no way we can know because everybody has a lower arch back. So, and that's the one thing you can do, because if you think like what's because you want to do the minimal amount of things, so you don't, because if like humans are like, oh, this is how we exist now, someone might be like, maybe that's not the best way to exist. But if you put a little arch in the lower back, no big deal. If everybody does it, how would you know? And the only reason I know is because one of the first things in Tai Chi they do, or at least they try to do, is get rid of that lower back arch. And you don't find out in the beginning why that is, but it's immediately part of the training. Day one, part of the training, the things you're doing, you're trying to get rid of that. And if you watch like Tai Chi masters, like from 1910, or when they first had black and white videos to record these things, they all have ridiculously flat backs. It's like, it's not even like flat. It's like if their head's here, it goes down, and it's just, and then their leg, and it looks ridiculous. I mean, it looks really strange, but and I think that's a little bit flatter than what they would have had back then. But the point is, they train it all the time, and then that allows the energy flow and all the other things I'm telling you about. And there's so much more. There's so much more about how they get around. I don't know. I mean, just think about all the things I've told you now. So just think about full body, tendon, and fascia quality. Oh yeah. When you move with your whole body in the present moment, relax, your muscles relax, your fascia tissue activates. One of the reasons we can't move just with our fascia tissue is it can only move in the present moment. Again, something how related to fascia tissue, similar to spirit. Fascia tissue activates in the present moment and with whole body, because the way the fascia tissue views itself, if you have a human with legs, it doesn't think about the legs or the arms. It literally thinks about it like an octopus, like it's a shape. So like in the Tai Chi moves, when they do these shapes, the beginners will just move their hands or legs to see a certain way, but eventually the chi flows through. So you take these qualities on how things can be. And so if someone's like, if a person's trying to hold on to the back of a tiger, I don't know if they did that or not, they wouldn't just like go like this and then like wrap their legs around. Their body would literally contort all at once. And with the fascia tissue, it's not like the muscle that you struggle. The fact it's a shape and full body, if it wants to do something, it doesn't struggle, it just moves that way. If there's anything stopping the way, it's not gonna be there. It'll just go through it, and it doesn't have to speed up to go through it. It literally just does its own thing. It like ignores everything else. So if there's anything in the way, it just ignores it. It's like it's not even there. And so the way the muscle has to really strive and get through, the fascia tissue, when you use it, feels very, especially in the present moment, everything feels effortless. It really feels effortless. So they're not struggling or straining to do anything, because that would make you tired, and you can't get tired back then because that's when you die. So how do they not get tired? By using the fascia tissue. Or when you spring jump, you're not really pushing with your foot or thigh that uses up, we get out of breath. You use the weight, again, full body weight of the run to land, and the spring maintains the momentum by storing its potential energy, and then you jump off again, and you're not pushing off, you literally just let the spring go, and then it lands again. And so really the energy you're using with the fascia tissue is just, it's the shape. The legs go like that. It's not just the legs, the body and everything moves at one thing. And so it's going like this, but if you actually watch it in still motion, it's like that. It's like the easiest thing. So they can run long distances and not get tired. And there's there's something else I thought of. And again, so this is like 5 things. So there's like 100 things like this. And you can probably think of some of them based off what I've told you so far, or just do your own research. But again, it was completely different back then. It had to be different, and not just the defensive part, like you can take 30 times a hit, but you had to be able to, run long distances without getting tired, move with the strength, not just super strength where you can be like 100 times stronger. When you move with your whole body and with fascia tissue, you're infinitely strong. Like wherever you move, you will move there. And I don't know how that works. Like if you have like a tree trunk, can you like squeeze a tree trunk and like break it in half? I think at that point what happens is your shape will actually conform to the tree. And so you're not moving through it. It actually, I don't know. But anyway, it's pretty ridiculous when you see these kind of things. And again, some of the martial arts, because like most of the internal arts will do things like this. Like if you know Xingyi or Bagua, one thing Bagua does, again, none of them have the arch in their back. And Bagua will move through people, because Bagua's based with multiple fighters, so it's running around and it has to plow through people like, you know, like that. And you think it's like a, you know, like a stiff arm in an NFL football player, but that's not what it's doing at all. If you see that they have their body in one piece, when they walk someone with their hand out like that, they're literally running into all the 100% of their body weight just going through their hand. Add the fascia tissue, they don't even feel it because it goes through them in the ground, so it feels like the person's made of paper, you know, to the Bagua master. And so they have all that momentum. None of it's taken up with that first guy, so they have 99.99% of the momentum is maintained for the next guy and the next guy and the next guy, and they don't get you know, as tired for everything I'm saying. So that's how I know about this stuff, is because it's still in, you know, esoteric fighting styles. You know, when you find real people who can do this, they have these qualities, but then, you know, but they don't walk around all day, you know, building chi energy for hours a day their whole lives, or increase their present moment perception, you know, 24/7 and things like that. So you still got to take what they do, which is ridiculously impressive, and then multiply it by like 1,000. And that's what they had, and that's what they had to have. And if they didn't have it, they died. And this is Caveman Part 2, and this was supposed to be more offensive, but I did defensive stuff too. Anyway, there's just a lot of stuff. I hope this blows your mind. This is just more stuff. I could do a third video about this. It's really cool. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks. Rescape 2.0.